Welcome to 2025. I am Joseph. This is Input English. Now that we are through the holidays, we are ready to resume our day-to-day routines. Many people consider the new year a time for a fresh start, a time to establish new routines, a time to focus on getting what we want done during this coming year. So let's look at how we might set up our routines to ensure the results we deserve in 2025. Let's start with a quote that has been attributed to Benjamin Franklin, and that is, "If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail." Now, I don't know if he actually said those words, but it has been attributed to him, and it's a very useful concept. So let's look at how you might approach establishing your day-to-day routine so that you will have a solid program to build your English in a fashion that suits your needs. I now know that people who watch these videos are distributed worldwide on 5 continents. Viewers of this channel come from all walks of life and represent all the different levels of proficiency in English. What we have in common is a wish to learn and grow. So let's look at how it would be logical to approach the coming year with routines, habits, and consistency depending upon your level. This channel is a filter. That is, I don't make beginner content. There are a lot of channels that do make beginner content. I find it challenging and not interesting to me, so I simply don't make beginner content. If you wanted to estimate the level of this content, you might assign it to A2 or B1. I don't speak particularly slowly or particularly quickly, and I try to pronounce words cleanly so that you can understand what I'm saying. So I make content that is very appropriate for an advanced beginner or an intermediate English learner. Now, advanced speakers of English are very welcome on this channel. People with advanced skills in the language they are learning can make use of all sorts of input, so all are welcome. Let's start with the advanced beginner or intermediate English learner. Lots of input is the right answer. Listening input in the form of videos, podcasts, and audiobooks would be ideal because at this stage you are trying to import the phonemes, the sounds of the English language, into your brain. If you find yourself in the early intermediate level of learning English, lots and lots of listening input would be the right answer. Perhaps thousands of hours, not dozens or hundreds of hours, but perhaps thousands of hours. Once someone gets to a level in English that they are speaking, their pronunciation is relatively good, then this is where we add reading. Now, you can add reading as early as you want, but we have found that there are consequences if reading is added early in the program. It does interfere with the development of good pronunciation. This is not me making rules. This is me telling you about a quirk of the human brain learning a language. If you start to read early, then that can interfere with the development of very good pronunciation. So with that as a starting point, the question for you is what will fit in your day-to-day and what will satisfy your needs. In previous videos, I have disclosed that when I started speaking Spanish, I was impatient. That is, I wanted a lot of progress very quickly, and I was willing to set aside the time to do it. So I listened to Spanish 3.5 hours a day, and on some days when the time was available, I logged more than 7 hours of input. Now to that you might say, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. And that's fine. You're in charge of your choices. I'm simply disclosing what I did. And the payoff was simple. I got 2,000 hours of input in less than 2 years, and I was very satisfied with what that did for me. I can easily understand native content. Once you've decided how much time will fit into your day, the question is, where will it fit? In a quote attributed to Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations, we should own the morning. Marcus Aurelius wrote that he found himself comfortable in bed and that he didn't really want to get up and get going, but he did nonetheless. He advocated that we should own the morning. And I agree with that. Early morning is a great time to learn languages. For the past half decade or more, I have reserved the early morning time for learning. Over the past 2 years, learning Spanish, but prior to that, studying literature. Of a plan, I set my alarm early, get up early, and put on a cup of coffee. Before I start the routine of that day's schedule, I already have acquired 1 hour of learning at the very beginning of the day. You will have to look at your daily routine to see where comprehensible input can fit into your day. A lot of us have traveling time, and if your level of English comprehension is good enough, then you could use podcasts or audiobooks, not video format, and incorporate that into your travel time. I did that for years, and it worked a lot to get a lot more input that would not be available in a video format. The end of the day is another time that discretionary time is available, and it's your choice how much of that you want to allocate to getting more input. I don't dictate how much time you allocate. I'm simply pointing out that these are times in people's schedules that are frequently available for input. Once your decisions are made, then I would use habits, because habits have great strength. And with habits, you can get consistency. Now, I admit to being a little bit compulsive about this process of learning because I was curious how it would work, and I wanted some data. I wanted some information. So I kept track of my time. When I had 1,000 hours of input, I knew I had 1,000 hours of input. It wasn't based on guesswork, it was based on records. I can't estimate for you how many thousands of hours it's going to take to get you what you want. I get questions like that, and I'm very respectful of the question and the questioner. I just have to point out that I don't have a way of concocting a formula that will answer the question honestly and accurately. I don't have that ability. We do know that if you want results sooner rather than later, you should put a lot of input into your schedule. If, on the other hand, this isn't that high a priority, you can choose a more modest amount of input to get. But even with modest amounts of input, you're way better off with habits and consistency than doing it from time to time. I've said before in these videos, you can't really click yourself to fluency. You can listen your way to fluency. There's another group of English learners that uses this channel, and that is the advanced speaker of English who wants to get better. To this group, I simply ask, how do you like your pronunciation? If you're advanced in English, you can function in English, you speak English, and you're not satisfied with your pronunciation, then that would suggest you would want a lot of listening input to get the phonemes of English into your brain. It's not too late. It's never too late. If, on the other hand, you're very satisfied with your pronunciation, you can communicate well, and there is no issue with pronunciation per se, then I would focus on reading. That is not to say to abandon videos and audio input, but really put some emphasis on reading, because reading will give you a vocabulary. One of the challenges for the advanced learner is the issue of low-frequency words. The advanced language learner wants to be very sophisticated in their use of the language. After all, in their native language, they're quite good. They have a huge vocabulary in their primary language, but this new language they want to bring up to that level as well. So low-frequency words become an issue for the advanced learner. Now, it's not that we have a different approach. The answer is still input, but it's a different kind of input, because if you need low-frequency words, then you need to read. Now, as you choose your reading material, you choose the vocabulary you're learning. If you read literary works, you get a literary vocabulary. If you read technical or scientific works, then you get a technical or scientific vocabulary. A lot of the reading we do in language learning at the advanced level is based on our interests, but we can still make decisions based on our needs as language learners. We can still say, let's work on a more literary language and go to works of literature that will give you just that. I'll use Moby Dick as an example. The author, Herman Melville, was an extraordinary user of the English language. And his book, Moby Dick, has a fantastic vocabulary and a great beauty the way he used the language to describe the story that he was telling. The books by Thomas Hardy are fantastic for literary vocabulary. So to the advanced learner of English, I would just suggest let's add a lot of reading to your routine. Read every day. In terms of how much, you're in charge of that. I try to read a book a month. I find that works out rather well for me, and it fits into my routine, a book a month. You'll decide on what fits into your routine. In yesterday's video, I disclosed my metrics for my routine that I will be doing an hour of Spanish input and or output each day, 30 minutes of tuba practice each day, perhaps to increase this, 30 minutes of French horn playing each day with the intent of turning that into 1 hour within a few weeks, and that while maintaining my video production schedule and maintaining control of the other responsibilities I have in my life. I can report that so far it's working great. My secret weapon, of course, is get up early and own the morning. Long before I turned this camera on, I had my 1 hour of Spanish input. So now that the holidays are behind us, let's make this 2025 a productive year for all of us. I invite comments below. If you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.